Thanks for tuning in to the Affecting Our Altruism podcast. This independent podcast is about people inspired by the principles of effective altruism who are walking their ideals through action. My featured guest today is Rachel Abbott. She is the founder and CEO of Kaya Guides, a digital mental health nonprofit serving India. She founded Kaya Guides after almost a decade's experience in program design, impact measurement, partnership development, and fundraising. She's worked with nonprofits, social enterprises, and large development organizations across 3 continents. She was selected as one of 9 incubatees from a pool of nearly 4,000 applicants in Charity Entrepreneurship's incubation program. Kaya Guides is the evidence-based organization she's founded, coming out of that incubator. If you're someone interested in maximizing your positive impact, my coaching is focused on helping people like you realize their potential. I've got a couple slots open at the moment, and I'll put more about that after the interview. I think you're going to love this. Check it out. Rachel, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah. How was your weekend at EAG Boston?
It was good. I really love the EA conferences because of the focus on one-on-ones.
Mm-hmm.
I felt helpful, which was a good feeling.
Yeah. How did you begin in this journey?
My career has been focused since the beginning on social impact in developing countries, so I've mostly lived abroad for my adult life. So I've worked in an agriculture nonprofit in Guatemala. I worked at a learning accelerator in Kenya that was training youth in engineering and helping them find jobs. I also worked at USAID, or rather a large USAID contractor focusing on West and Central Africa. And, so I had mostly worked in early stage organizations and startups trying to create change from the ground up, but I became interested in sort of the big money area of development because USAID, you have these 10, 20, $100 million grants, and I wanted to understand what is this money really going to? And when I got a job in these large government institutions and understanding how large government institutions like that work, it just kind of increased my desire to make change effectively because I saw ways that maybe change wasn't being made so effectively. I remember this conversation very vividly that I had with someone at that organization who had been there a long time, where they said, I think of our impact in concentric circles. The people that we benefit the most are our staff in the field. After that, it's our subcontractors. And beyond that, are we having impact? I don't know. I hope we're doing good in the world. I hope at minimum we're not doing harm. And I was like, what are you saying? That's what this whole thing is for. And I thought if it's about giving people money, we should just give people money. And so that's kind of where I got on the concept of cash benchmarking, actually, and what could we do that's more effective than cash benchmarking. And I ultimately found myself applying for Charity Entrepreneurship Now Ambitious Impacts program.
So I understand that you're working with digital mental health. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so my organization is called Kaya Guides, and essentially we run a self-help program on WhatsApp for young people with depression in India. So we are somehow the first organization in the world to implement the World Health Organization's guided self-help program, which they designed to be implemented and scaled in low and middle income countries where there's not much mental health care available, and we happen to be the first. So the way that our program works is someone would message our WhatsApp number, and then they interact with a chatbot, which is teaching them evidence-based techniques to reduce depression, which they're applying in their lives. And then once a week, they have a 15-minute call with what we call a guide, so an emotional health supporter, over the course of 8 weeks. And the reason for this model of self-help plus this sort of frequent but brief human support is that it's actually proven to have the same level of effectiveness as face-to-face psychotherapy in reducing depression, even when the supporter has no clinical background at all and the support is only 15 minutes per week.
Somebody to talk to.
Yeah, that's part of it.
What was, can you tell me a little bit about the research or the theory behind it?
So AIM identified guided self-help, this overall intervention, as being a very cost-effective way to address mental health issues. Based primarily on this meta-analysis of, I think it's 26 RCTs that show that internet-based therapy using this model has the same effectiveness as face-to-face psychotherapy. And of course, what this means is that you don't have to find and pay costly clinicians, and it's just an inherently more scalable approach.
Yeah.
So for the WHO program that we have contextualized to India and are implementing on WhatsApp, they studied this in 3 RCTs in Lebanon. And they saw very good results of reducing depression, and very happy to report that so far, so do we. It appears to be a successful replication. Our program is reducing depression on par with the WHO's original program.
That makes me so happy. But I'm the one who's not the happiest. It's the people of India. Okay, why India? How did you choose India as your target audience? Or population?
So India has the largest treatment gap in the world when it comes to mental health care. So you have the world's biggest country, 1.4 billion people, and the government spends only 0.77% of its healthcare budget on mental health, 96% of which goes to a single research institution compared to actually delivering mental health services to the population. And of that, in the most recent statistics I've seen in 2018, 2019, only 4% of the 4% was actually executed at all.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so essentially you have this really big need, but then you also have this reachable population, because in India, many people, even people from lower income backgrounds, have access to smartphones and the internet. And so that's primarily why we decided to focus on India, is because it's somewhere where there's a very large need for additional mental health care services, and it is actually possible to reach people with delivering them. I also just like India.
Yeah, I get that. Is all the support in English or different languages?
All the support is in Hindi.
Oh, Hindi.
We decided
Why did I guess English first? Wonder why.
It's not a terrible guess, in that right now virtually all mental health resources available in India are in English, which makes them inaccessible to the majority of the population. So we wanted to do it in Hindi, firstly because that gives us a lot of room to scale. There are many Hindi speakers, 600 million in India. And also because it's actually the language with the poorest speakers in India, that is. And so by doing it in Hindi, we are increasing the likelihood that we're reaching people who would not otherwise access mental health care. The majority of our participants are 18 to 24, and we target our Instagram ads, which is the primary way through which we recruit participants, in
Instagram. Okay, Instagram for good.
The world's young people are on Instagram.
Also, this might be off the record, but is Meta okay with this and happy with this and what you're doing? Are they involved?
Yeah, there's an increasing number of organizations who implement social programs on WhatsApp. They encourage that, actually.
Well, good for them, and good for the world. Very cool. Let's take a step back and think. I'd like to ask you about mental health versus physical health. Let's call it. How did you decide to work on something, or how did you decide to work on a project that's focused on mental health when we could be working on things that prevent people from dying of diseases, for example?
So the WHO identifies mental health as one of, if not the most neglected areas of healthcare globally. On average, 2% of government healthcare budgets go to mental health. And think about how big that disparity is when you're thinking about the person that you bring with you everywhere that you go, and the suffering that you experience. It only gets 2% of the budget, right? And 98% goes to physical health. More dollars are lost to mental illness than to malaria. And this actually is an extreme underestimate, because the Global Burden of Disease study counts suicide as an injury.
Quite an injury, yeah.
And 700,000 people per year die by suicide, which studies indicate that 60 to 98% of suicides are directly attributable to mental health conditions. So
these are really strong. These are all strong links. Every one of these is such a strong link. Yeah.
So it's a significantly larger problem from a health perspective than the statistics would even necessarily indicate. Then you have the economic implications. So 12 billion productive workdays per year are lost to depression and anxiety alone. Economists project that by 2030, the cost to the world economy of mental illness will be $6 trillion per year. Mental illness also has the highest rates of unemployment compared to any other form of disability.
I'm like, what am I feeling right now? I'm feeling like so committed. I'm feeling so bought into this line of reasoning. And like these numbers are massive.
Yeah. And then, a question that, a deeply challenging and uncomfortable question that I get asked sometimes is, well, why should we invest in mental health when people are dying from diseases? But my answer to that is that investing in mental health is health, and it does also save lives.
So yeah, amazing work you're doing, Rachel, and your team. Speaking of your team, how did you get the people on your team? How did you find the people? How did you recruit them, and what are they like?
Yeah, so right now it is myself, our clinical director, 3 guides, and actually very new and exciting. Just as of a couple of days ago, I brought on a co-founder, sort of like a second stage co-founder, who is fantastic. So I found our clinical director through an advisor who was based in India, recommended her, and I was lucky enough to be introduced to Rashi. Her name is Rashi Sinha, and she did a fantastic job and is just an extraordinarily creative and unique and innovative thinker, as well as a great clinician. She supervises our guides, who are the folks who have phone calls with participants.
Yeah.
The thing that I love about the guides and their role is that they can be literally anyone. That's the point of the position, is that we're not hiring clinicians. So you can come from any kind of background and be a guide. You don't have to have worked in medicine before, as long as you're an empathetic person. So we've actually brought 2 women back into the workforce who had left to raise children and then were returning. One of them was a call center representative for gold loans previously. Another had worked in NGOs. A third guide was in employee training for companies. And so just seeing that incredible diversity of backgrounds is really amazing. And that's actually something that I consider to be a not insignificant aspect of the impact of our intervention, is that there's a direct correlation between the number of guides we have and the number of participants we help, which means that we create a lot of jobs. So, for example, by 2030, we project that we may have hired around 2,000 guides.
Wow. That is a huge team. That's a huge base of carrying people on the phone. What's their current call load? How many calls are they making a week?
So
15 minutes each.
That's right, yeah. Right now it's relatively small, but we think that if we optimize it properly and to the fullest ability, then they should be able to each help about 1,000 participants per year. So the maximum call load that they can take is about 120 calls per week.
1,000 conversations with Hindi speakers. And when you see call center, I was like, what an amazing use of that resource. India got so many call centers.
I know, there's so many call centers.
All over the rest of the world, call your neighbor now. What a beautiful make use of our resource.
Call your neighbor now. That's gonna be our new catchline. I love that. Yeah.
Call your bhai.
Call your bhai. That's it.
Very cool. I'm so excited for you and Hugh to be moving upwards. A very, very steep angle, it looks like, with your scaling possibility that I heard you describing before. The sky's the limit. I'm so excited for India. So, how does Kaya Guides practice its values?
So, participants first is to give the team a felt sense of the person-centered focus that we have. And so an example of participants first would be, there was a day that one of our guides called out sick, and we needed to send out messages to participants letting them know that the guide wasn't going to be able to make it. And everybody dropped what they were doing and immediately offered to jump on that right away. So that's an example of how participants first would come into day-to-day work. I guess I would say for seek the truth, speak the truth, that's the quest to see reality as it is, not as we wish it were. And so if we find things that maybe are not in line with what we expected or aren't good, we still will call it for what it is, both to ourselves and to external stakeholders, because we want to improve, and you can only improve if you recognize where you are. And lastly, when it comes to have fun, be real, give a shit, I'm a big fan of vulnerability, so I'm quite authentic about what's going on with me and any challenges that I'm having with the team, and I encourage everyone to behave that way, because I just think that the more honest and real you are, the more opportunity you have for genuine human connection and strong relationships that allow you to have a good time and to achieve big things.
What are some of them like as people? The guides, like, have you gotten to know some of them?
Yeah, of course. So one of them is just, I don't know how to describe exactly, a very sweet person, like comes across as very sweet and innocent. Another one of them, I don't know, it's like, whenever I look at her, it's like she just like lights up the room. She's someone who just kind of brings a smile to your face with her presence. And another one is a guy with just a very grounded, kind of reassuring, sort of stable personality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I hope that every guy that is hired has that same kind of glow that is able to bring like some stability to the people that are being served. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can I ask you about funding a bit?
Sure.
What is your current marginal funding at?
So our budget for next year is $240,000, and the marginal funding gap that we have at the moment is $190,000, but we're waiting to hear back about a major funding opportunity, fingers crossed, and so that would hopefully fund a significant portion of that. We also have a stretch budget of $320,000, and what that would do is allow us to help an additional 2,000 participants, as well as play around with increasing our effect size and engagement and a couple of other things. And so right now, in terms of what donations can actually do, so if you look at it on a per participant level, our current cost per participant is $120, and then next year we'll be getting that down to $50. So a $50 donation helps us to help a participant, and that's accounting the whole organizational budget. It's not just the marginal costs. And then in terms of if potential donors wanted to get an idea of specifically what would their money be going towards, the direct costs of implementing the program are the guide salaries, the cost of the platform that we use for the WhatsApp bot, and the cost of recruitment, which is our Instagram ads. So this, of course, is a very impactful use of funds because it's directly making the program possible and implementing it. But then a super impactful area is that obviously part of what next year's budget will cover is my new co-founder's salary, and this is the person who's going to oversee all of the tech of the organization, and tech is the delivery mechanism by which our program happens at all. Like there's no mental health without the tech actually delivering the messages to people, right? And in terms of sustainability and future funding prospects, though, I will say that I'm really optimistic about the overall direction of global health and development in terms of increasing its focus and as well as its resources on mental health. I've had conversations with a number of people who indicate this, that I see this happening in real ways. But also there is opportunity for Kaya Guides to potentially earn alternative revenue streams. So governments are picking up step by step, and if they wanted to implement through a chatbot, then it potentially would make sense for them to use our tech. Currently, the Lebanese government offers step-by-step as part of their national healthcare service offerings. And so this is very possible. This is actually the ultimate vision that Kaya Guides has, is to be adopted by the Indian government and offered as part of the Indian government's national healthcare service offerings.
So how do you relate your personal neurotype, like the way your brain works, to your vocation, which is in mental health? Like, how has your unique mind led to you doing what you're doing?
Yeah, a couple things. One is that I have lived experience myself with mental health issues, which is part of what inspires me to work on this. And I think that it's a big strength in this position because it enables me to relate with our users and create a product and a service that is genuinely going to help them and come at it from I'm able to come at it from their perspective and create something with empathy. So that's one aspect of it. Another is I have ADHD, which I think lends itself, I don't know, on the one hand it lends itself very well to an entrepreneurial role, and on the other hand it makes it very challenging, and I could talk a little bit more about that, but I think the good thing is that the ADHD brain really craves novelty and variety. And as a founder, you get so much novelty and variety. Like, that's the thing that I love about it. I used to have a job that was focused on one thing, and then I would just get bored of it. I would get the hang of it and be like, okay, what else now? I need variety. But as the founder, I get to do all of the jobs. And so I think that from that perspective, it also kind of contributes to the way that I approach the work. And then secondarily, people with ADHD, not always, but often are sort of like energetic, kind of, how do I say, like sort of blunt or honest and kind of talky kind of people. And so I think that that's like a strength that I have, is the ability to connect with people. And so that helps me in developing good relationships with potential funders and external partners and staff.
Oh, wow. So it's you found like how your individual uniqueness is fitted into your work. That's really cool. And I hope that people listening can feel like they belong. People with different neurodivergences can do a lot with themselves.
Yeah, I would say my favorite moment by far at this EAG conference this last weekend, and maybe my favorite moment at any of them, was there's a neurodiversity meetup as a formal part of the conference. I went to that, and they handed out fidget toys. And I had never felt so welcomed and at home and accepted than I did sitting around this table at a conference with 10 grown adults, just at my table, like actively and compulsively playing with fidget toys. And, hearing other people talk about what the challenges are of being neurodivergent, especially, in personal life, but especially as related to the workforce. There are definitely unique challenges that come with being a founder and a CEO with ADHD.
Yeah. Wow. Cool. I'm glad you had that experience. How do you take time to take care of spiritual needs of your personal life, and how do you balance all that stuff?
Yeah, I would say I do a pretty terrible job of balancing all that stuff. You have pointed out very accurately that it's a really busy life, and I think that the entrepreneurial journey can be an all-consuming one. I would say that in the past, and I learned an important lesson from this, really lost myself in it, and I stopped engaging spiritually, I stopped engaging creatively, and it really took a toll on my life. So I'm actually just at a point now where I've kind of come out of that and sort of seen the light and remembered that my life matters just because it does, and not only instrumentally as a means to an end of doing good things and helping other people. And so I'm excited to now have a little bit more breathing room, and have created more space for myself to be able to engage in those kinds of things.
Yeah, and I hope that you feel that actually that's leveraged right for, maybe even for work, make your work better. If you actually respect yourself, practice respect for yourself.
It does. Ever since I've decreased the amount of time that I work, I've actually seen the quality of my work really go up. I'm more decisive, I have more clarity, I'm more efficient, and so I'm, I guess, no longer necessarily an evangelist the way I used to be for the idea that founders for early stage organizations should be like on the grind and working as much as they possibly can, because I'm not sure that it ultimately even leads to good outcomes.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. But I'd love to see that cultural shift and you be part of that. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up?
You didn't ask what I do for fun.
Oh, okay. Because you have interviews for fun. This is the funnest thing you've ever done. So, what do you do for fun? One of the things I do for fun, I love ecstatic dance. I'm actually a space holder for Ecstatic Dance Mumbai. I also love exploring India and trying all of the foods. I love doing yoga. I love hiking. I'm more of a mountains than a beach person. Reading fiction, learning languages, talking to strangers are some of the things I like to do. आपको हिंदी बोलता है?
मैं हिंदी बोलती हूँ, मैं हिंदी सीख रही हूँ, लेकिन थोड़ी बोरी है.
Shabash.
Yeah.
Hindi, what else? Any other languages?
So I speak Spanish, French, Hindi, Swahili, and Vietnamese. To varying degrees. Varying degrees.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm floored.
Varying degrees. But
That's really cool. Okay. One thing. Can you teach me one thing in Vietnamese?
You could say em có thể nói tiếng Việt. That means I can speak Vietnamese.
Em có thể
Có thể nói tiếng.
có thể nói tiếng.
I don't think we're gonna get tones down right now.
It's got like a million tones, doesn't it? Oh my god.
6 tones, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Is there anything you want to say in closing?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I would say is for all of the effective altruists out there who are deciding what the most impactful career path is for them and what they want to do with their lives, please consider mental health. Mental health is extraordinarily neglected. There is a need for new talent. There's a need for new solutions. And I actually want to speak in particular to developers and tech people because we need you guys in the nonprofit sector. I had a really difficult time recruiting good tech talent for a nonprofit. And that's because often people who study computer programming and they go that direction, their intention is to work in for-profits. Their intention is to make money. But there is so much potential to leverage technology to create large-scale change. Nowhere else, perhaps, so much so as in the mental health sector. And so I just want to put a call out there for developers to think about using their skills in the nonprofit sector because they can do a lot of good and there really are very few people who are doing that.
Wow. I'm surprised by that, considering how much opportunity there is for good stuff to happen.
That's right.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rachel, for having this conversation. I'm super energized about mental health. I'm super energized about India and what's lies ahead for you and for Kai Guides.
Thank you. Had a good time.
Yeah. Same.
Cool.
Woo! We did it.
All right.
Okay.
Fun.
Good luck to Kaya Guides, good luck to India, all the best. Take care of your mental health, eh? Follow Kaya Guides through their newsletter, which you can sign up through their website, Kaya, spelled Kaya, guides.com. Please let them know that you heard about it through the Affecting Our Altruism podcast. My hope in this podcast is that you hear stories like Rachel's and feel that you can make a difference by just taking in the lessons. Also, to that same end, I work with people in video calls to move them forward towards their own theories of impact in coaching sessions. I believe that individual coaching has massive upside potential for people who are trying to make a difference. And if you're listening to this, I'm talking to you. So I'd like to invite you to check out my website, ElliotBillingsley.com. My last name is long, Billingsley, ElliotBillingsley.com, to learn more about my practice and book a free introductory session with me. No one will be turned away for lack of funds. Let's not let cost be why you don't talk to me. That said, my coaching services are a profit for good business, meaning most of my profit will ultimately be going to effective charities. So if you can afford paying, great. If you can't, reach out anyway. Well, that's enough for me. Thanks so much for listening, and Arebaya, all is well. Now go change the world.